Hello, and welcome to the Practice Marketing Podcast, highlighting successful strategies from North America's fastest growing clinics and experts so you can learn from their wins and power your practice growth. I'm your host, Neil Trickett, CEO of Practice Promotions, and today we're going to talk about top social media trends for physical therapy clinics in 2025. And we've got none other than McKenna Dance here, who's our director of our patient engagement team here at Practice Promotions. And she has her master's degree in mass communication and media studies and has helped over 200 Practice Promotions clients grow their business and brand. So McKenna, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So our listeners here have a special treat today because McKenna is really going to get to tell us about social media here and what she's been doing to help our clients grow their presence with some phenomenal results. But first, let's talk a little bit about you, McKenna, and can you give us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in marketing for PT clinics?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in the marketing world for about 8 years now, give or take a little bit. And the last 5, I've been all in on physical therapy clinics. I've always been fascinated with how people think and behave, both as individuals and in groups. And that curiosity led me to marketing, go figure, where I could kind of blend that strategy with psychology to drive behaviors. And ultimately real connections with physical therapy, because that's what drew me to the PT space specifically, was that people-centered approach, and that's what physical therapy is all about, helping others. So I just love being able to bridge that gap between clinicians doing incredible work and the patients who need to find them to live without that ache or pain. So at Practice Promotions, I get to do all of that, and I get to lead the patient engagement team where we support everything from social media to email to print marketing. But today we're going to talk about all socials because it's super creative, strategic, and super rewarding.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And so for you, as you've been helping clinics a lot with their social media activities, what are some of the trends that you're seeing right now that clinics and clinic owners should pay attention to here in 2025?
So going into 2025, there's really 3 things that you need to keep in mind when you're looking at your social landscape. You need to be thinking about bite-sized videos, and I'm not talking about anything super produced. Short form, human-centered videos will dominate across all platforms. You need to show up with helpful, authentic content that builds the trust. You know, a quick stretch, a common sense injury tip, a peek into the clinic behind the scenes view. That is what makes it easy for your team to create this type of content without having to become video pros, because that's not what we're asking you to do with socials. The trend is clear. Clinics embrace even simple videos. You'll get a stronger reach and growth with those. So definitely videos. And then local visibility as a strategic approach. Don't think about your community as, don't count them out. As social platforms continue to refine their algorithms, they're just as important as the master Google. You really got to lean into social channels and prioritize them more, especially going into the strategy behind it. You don't have to tag every business in town. Just using your city or your neighborhood geotag will do a ton for you, or hashtagging that local neighborhood or community that you want to attract the patients in will help you so much within those areas. In a world of online noise, clinics that show up as a part of their community and stand out will have that strategic advantage. And that starts with simply being findable and relevant to your local audience. So that's really step 1.
So one question on that.
Yeah.
So as sometimes we think like social media is only for like influencers that are all over the world, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying though that like you can really be specific with local groups, the way that Facebook or Instagram is showing you up. It's going to be for people that are more in your community, your area, so you can get in front of people locally that weren't even thinking about your clinic.
Absolutely. The explore pages on those platforms do use, targeted approaches for who they're going to push out to you. So, you know, if hashtags are relevant to you, like your community is relevant to you, I'm sure they'll show up for you. So that's really, really important. Don't count them out. I feel like people count hashtags out a ton, but they are there and they're for a purpose. They're those keywords, you know, think of them as your keywords and really drive that.
So like if you're in Richmond, Virginia, for example, like we are, then you could do hashtag Richmond or, you know, something related to that particular community, or even dial it down even further. We've got like Midlothian, which is part of a community around Richmond. So you could type in hashtag Midlothian, and then people who are searching for all kinds of things in those areas might actually discover, you know, one of your exercise tip videos or something like that, right?
Oh yeah, even the higher income communities and neighborhoods, 55 plus, you know, living groups, things like that. Don't count them out, tag them. It'll definitely be useful in your hashtags.
Now, you'd also said here on the bite-sized video, that's like a real big trend now. We see that a lot in social. We see it in YouTube, like people like you know, going through a 30-second video, right? Or a 45-second video, something like that. And so as you've worked with clinics here, is it hard for a clinic to do that internally?
No, it's not hard. And I'll talk about this a little bit in the next few, you know, conversations as well too, but everyone loves bloopers, you know, so don't take it so seriously. Even catching funny moments is good. You can use that to your advantage, but it's really that human-centered video that will make it, you know, change and have that difference for you and reaching. And, you know, you have to remain authentic. They'll know if you're camera shy or, you know, if you're not as comfortable, but it's okay. Say you're not as comfortable, but you're trying. It's totally fine. People react to, you know, the same behaviors that they see every day.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, that's definitely really a powerful thing there from bite size. And I think too, like if you just think about it a little bit in your clinic, if you just structure it a little bit, I mean, maybe just get like a small, cheap, like a decent enough iPhone or something in the clinic that has a good camera on it, right? That's easy for someone to pick up, you know, record. And I think also if you designate someone in the office to be the person that gets content, right? So it doesn't have to be you. It can be a tech. It could be an office manager. It could be a super bubbly PTA, you know, whoever it may be in your clinic that has that, like, loves interactions, getting people, put them in charge of like, hey, we've got to get this much content to use in our social media and our marketing. And then they could just be reminding people when they have a good result or something like that, or they're seeing a cool exercise being done, like, hey, let's just record that for 5 seconds. I mean, it doesn't take much effort.
100%. And I would say too, don't count out the moms. They capture every moment during the holidays. So they will capture your moments in the clinics as well too. So I think as long as you have someone there that has the ability to have that iPhone, you will absolutely be able to get content that is authentic and will resonate. So yeah, so bite-sized videos is step number 1. Local visibility and using that as a strategic advantage for your hashtags is definitely step number 2. And step number 3 is really kind of going in all of that. Authenticity is through social proof. So social media users are savvier than ever going into 2025 and continuing to do that. And they are drawn to what feels real. A big trend that we're seeing is leaning into the everyday moments, sharing those real people, real stories, and the outcomes that you see every day. And just the occasional photo of even your scheduler at the front desk who all of your patients see coming in. That is what makes a big moment or a big difference in your social clinics or on your social channels. And especially if you have a competitive market, this kind of authenticity is what will set you apart to the big dogs, to the big competitors, to the people that you're really looking at. This is going to set the stage for you to be able to show it in a more authentic, personable approach than your website or anywhere else.
Yeah, awesome. And I think you brought up a good point there, and that is, in today's world, people look at your online presence. They look at, and especially if you want to attract, say cash value added patients, premium insurance type patients, they look and judge people online, right? They're doing their due diligence before they ever pick up the phone or anything like that. So you got to really look good. And it's interesting too, because we might think like, oh, I've got to be really good at Google, or I've got to really do like Facebook ads, or I've got to do, whatever the new thing is. But if you work at posting organically on social consistently, you organically get followers, right?
Yep.
And you organically start to connect with people. It's like also word of mouth. That's really like what it is, right? It's just
100%.
powerful word of mouth. And what we don't realize too is that digital presence is what other platforms lean on. So if you want your Google SEO to do better, if you want to rank better in Google, that actually looks at how people are interacting on your Facebook profile, on your Instagram
You're exactly
profile.
right.
So that could be something that could also help you get more new patients from an SEO perspective, because you're more consistent with your social media posting.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. And if you're wondering where to start on social media, look at your Google keywords, think about some of those and use those as hashtags, what you really want to promote, what you really want to get out there. That's definitely, a kind of little tip and trick too.
Yeah, that's great advice, because a lot of times we're like, oh, what should I do? What should I post? Right. And just do a quick search on Google, right? It starts to tell you all the secrets right there, what people are interested in, right? So I love that. So we have a lot of choices out there, right? We've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, we've got TikTok, we've got LinkedIn. And so sometimes it can feel a little daunting of like, where do I put my attention here? So what are some of your suggestions here as far as where should I put my efforts platform-wise?
This is honestly one of my favorite questions, because it completely depends on where your target audience is, where they're actually spending time, and the one clinic that can commit to showing up consistently. So what I really think about is Instagram continues to be a stronger platform. For that, think about quick exercise demo, team intros, patient success stories. That is a great platform for building connections, brand personality, things like that. Facebook is a staple, okay? Especially for clinics with an older patient database. A lot of people are surprised to hear this, but Facebook is very much community focused. So if you really want to get into that local market, word of mouth, really tap into family or friend referrals. That is a big platform for it. It's perfect for sharing clinic updates. Still those exercise demo, team intros, things like that. But events are great on Facebook, and staying, like I said, just visible in that local market. Mm-hmm. They have different community groups, things like that is really what you want to tap into. LinkedIn, also, don't count it out. That is more for professional networking though, like referrals from physicians, partnerships with local employers, building credibility within the healthcare community in your local area. So it's a little bit more of a niche audience, but it's still really valuable. Also, your white collar audience might be on LinkedIn, those types of individuals that have a little bit more money to spend in the wellness space, they might be on that platform because they're business professionals and they, have a little bit more to spend. TikTok too, it can be a great tool, but really only if it fits your clinic's personality. If someone on your team loves being on camera and you have the right energy for it, that's great. TikTok can absolutely help you reach a younger audience, a standout audience. But if it's not your vibe, you don't have to force yourself into it. So that's something really important too. Overall, I tell clinic overs, you don't need to be everywhere. Choose 1, 2, 3 that are really important to you, to your messaging, and to your audience specifically, and to your bandwidth. Don't bite off more than you can chew, and we'll help you do that really well.
Yeah, that's good advice. So you don't have to be all over the place.
No.
Sometimes I think that's what we feel is like, oh, if I got to do social media, I've got to be like all over the place, and that's exhausting, right?
Yeah.
But I like what you said, that it's really about who your audience is. And so for most clinics out there that are your, typical outpatient orthopedic, your patient demographic is usually middle age and up. Mm-hmm. And Facebook is going to be your staple there. So you definitely want to put a lot of effort into Facebook, and then Instagram too, because a lot of, people say from like their 20s on up through 50s are more on Instagram, right? Or they could do a combination of both. And that's the thing too, is like people aren't just on one thing, right?
You're
People
exactly
are
right.
on all kinds of stuff. Like me, I like Instagram, I like Facebook, I like YouTube,
Yep.
so like you're LinkedIn. I mean, so people are just hopping around depending
Yep.
on what mood they're in that day, right? So I
Yep.
think looking at that is, if you can work with the strong performers for your clinic, which is usually going to be Instagram or Facebook, and sometimes we feel like, oh, TikTok, I got to get on TikTok. But really, TikTok is going to be where you would traditionally have some younger audience. So if you do like, athlete programs and things like that, you might want to look at TikTok if your audience is really on there. But for most clinics, I think you're going to be on Instagram or Facebook.
Absolutely. I agree.
And so, you've worked with a lot of clinics here. You're helping them with their social media. So what kind of content is really getting the most engagement for clinics these days? Is it educational posts? Is it stories, reels? Like, what are you seeing?
So I would take it back to, again, what feels real, helpful, and human. You don't need to reinvent the wheel with it. The top three, in my opinion, would be educational content with a personal twist. So quick demos of exercises, maybe a posture tip, mobility advice works really well. But the key is to keep it simple and conversational. So when a clinic owner or a PT explains something like they would to a patient in the room, don't do it as super medical, do it as, a humanistic touch point. Bonus points if it's a video, but even a strong photo will be super helpful with a caption that goes a long way. Patient success stories. People want to hear what other people experience, and that's social proof. That is proof for you. And when people get real results, it builds confidence and it makes your clinic just that much more reliable, relatable, the expert in the community, and it has that story behind it that, is of course that human. And then behind the scenes team content. So babies do great, weddings do great, birthdays do great, clinic celebrations do great, new hires, dressing up for the holidays. All of these kinds of posts consistently get great engagement. But the key to it is they remind your audience that your staff are people, not just a brand, and that you're going to get that one-on-one care from an individual at the end of the day, because you don't need to go viral. You need to stay consistent and you need to show the value in what you do. That's the kind of content that's going to get you what you want.
Some great points there. So with educational content, right? People are coming to us as physical therapists because we're experts in musculoskeletal or neurological, whatever your specialty is. They're looking at you as the medical expert to go to for help, right? So that is your angle right there on any of the social platforms, is what kind of value and knowledge can you use this platform for? And my gosh, we got so much to share, right? And I would say too, like when you're posting things out there, a lot of times if you're inviting comments and people to respond back to you, you get a good pulse on what people want or what problems that they're saying, and you can create more information around that. So I like what you said, the educational content, but that personal twist. So you're portraying who you are. You don't want to be like a cold medical practitioner, right? But you want to have some fun with it. People see that you're personable and they want to see what things are happening. And then I'm a big proponent of what you just said here, which is patient success stories, because we have so many stories that happen every single day in our clinic, and these amazing transformational stories. And I would say, like, if you really boil down what you're trying to do from a PR and a marketing perspective, is you're just trying to tell all these amazing stories within your clinic, right? And that excites people, interests people, and they want to start to connect with you. So you've got to have the mechanisms in place to gather that, right? And it doesn't have to be complicated, but just who's in charge of it, what's some of your simple processes, video and pictures and actual reviews and testimonials and things like that, and leverage it, right? And then use it out there. So I love what you're saying with that. And then your final content tip here was behind the scenes. And so that makes it personal and fun, right? And you can, I mean, there's TikTok dancers that the team can do, whatever, it can make it a good, a good team building activity too, right? Doing these things together. So great suggestions there, McKenna.
The top 10% of PT owners aren't just surviving, they're thriving. But what's their secret? Well, Neil Trickett's new Market to Grow book reveals how the top 10% of PT practices leverage marketing systems to simultaneously grow their new patients, attract top talent, and boost profit in their practice. You can learn from their secrets. Visit practicepromotions.net/book to claim your free copy of Market to Grow. Yes, you heard that right. We are shipping a free copy of Market to Grow to all podcast listeners who want it. Just visit practicepromotions.net/book to claim your free book. And now back to the show.
Now let's talk here a little bit about metrics and strategy when using social. So when you're running social for a clinic, what are the key metrics that you're looking to track to measure success?
So the first one is always going to be engagement rate. And of course, those are your likes, comments, saves, shares, and all of those are really great indicators of how well the content is connecting with your audience. So we're always looking at that, and we're always tweaking our captions too to encourage that. Encourage the likes, encourage the comments, encourage the shares, especially if we're promoting a patient testimonial. How cool is it if that patient shares that post to their followers? I mean, talk about that working for you. You know what I mean? That's awesome. So, engagement rate is huge. And one thing to keep in mind there is a small loyal follower interaction regularly is way more valuable than having thousands of ghost followers. You want that small, tight-knit community because that's what's going to move the needle for you. You don't need a huge amount of followers that are not going to do that for you. So engagement rate is huge. And then reach and impressions, of course. So this tells us how many people are seeing your post, and then, of course, how often. And that's especially important for clinics that are trying to boost those visibilities in their local area. So if we're doing a lot of hashtag research for your clinic, we'll be looking a lot at those two metrics there to really stay top of mind with, word of mouth and referrals in that area. And then just consistency and momentum. So how often are you posting, and is your follower presence growing over time? Social media is not a one post wonder. It's about showing up regularly, staying relevant, and building trust that leads to patients' conversions over time. That's just point blank what it is. So we track and review this regularly with our clients so they can see what's working and feel confident in their online presence without kind of getting lost in the numbers.
Mm-hmm. That's great stuff. And being able to track a lot of things gives you information, right? You can make decisions around that when you see people are really excited about this particular topic and they see a lot of engagement around that, then now I know what to make more of. So that's really simple that way. I think sometimes we can get a little caught up, like you were saying, in trying to have so many followers, right? Mm-hmm. And I like how you put it. It's more about that loyal following and the interactivity of that loyal following. And if we look at Facebook and Instagram, the reality is that there's way more people posting and companies advertising than there are possible slots for someone to scroll on in an hour, right? Yeah. So the algorithm is going to look at what this person's behaviors are and what are the things that it thinks that you would like to see. So you're better off, like you said, to be consistent and have people liking and sharing and commenting and all these kind of things on your posts, and trying to just do that to your local community and groups of followers with that. And you're just going to get shown a lot more.
Yep.
Right. The algorithm is going to like you a lot more. So that makes a lot of sense in terms of how you're looking at the metrics and your strategy for that. So do you have any tips for PTs who want to improve their engagement without spending hours a day online?
Yes. Really first start with what resonates to your audience. And we brought that up a few times. Patient success stories, quick mobility tips, exercises that they can do at home. Those are types of posts that do get a lot of interaction because they're helpful, they're relatable. So start with a few of those and use a mix of formats. You know, photos are absolutely wonderful, but like we said, you don't have to be a video pro, and don't forget about video. You know, authenticity and consistency, like we have said, are key. So engagement is about starting the conversation, and you got to start posting to start the conversation. So just be sure to encourage people to comment, share their experiences, or ask you questions too. You know, keep it lighthearted, keep it community focused. I said in the beginning too, everyone loves a blooper moment, so don't be afraid to use those. And then my biggest tip is don't do it in the moment. Set aside just 15 minutes once or twice a week to schedule a few posts in advance. That way, if you are a busy clinic owner, you don't have to think about social media every single day, and you still get that consistent presence online without that constant time commitment.
That's a great point. So as you're working with folks, are you typically working with the practice owner, or are you working more like someone else in the office, or are you office manager or marketing director?
Sometimes depend. I would say the owners mainly handle the background of the Facebook and the Instagram accounts, so updating the bios, the photos, things like that. But gathering the content, I absolutely can work with a coordinator in the clinic and, you know, have that taken off of, you know, the owner's responsibility there. So as long as there's someone that can communicate, we can kind of, you know, work that to our advantage.
Got it. And I like what you said too there about batch working it, right? So
Yes.
it can not get done if you try to do it every day, right? Or you try to do it 3 times a week. But if you say, hey, couple times a month,
Yep.
you're gonna work on this. You know, it's gonna take us a few minutes for each video or something, and you've kind of mapped out our theme for the month. Maybe that's a great thing for you to work on, right? That way you can knock it all out and then schedule it out, and then boom, it's working. And then next month you do it, so you don't have to spend like time every single week working on this. You probably want to, you know, you're probably on Facebook and Instagram anyway, so you're going to just check on some of your comments and things like that you want to respond to, which is really important too. Like if you are getting comments, make sure you respond to people.
Yes, respond.
Right? Because the algorithm likes that.
Yes.
When you respond to people, then it shows you more. But yeah, I think a big part of it is just realizing like, oh, it doesn't have to be overwhelming. I can just batch this, get it done, you know, 1 time a month, and schedule it all out. And during that month, we could just be having fun, getting some, you know, quick videos.
Team building. It'll get easier as the months go on too.
Exactly. And we see, I mean, there are some clinics out there that are crushing it in social media, right? And they made it, they've gotten bigger. So obviously they have some more people that are helping them do this kind of stuff, but they make it a strategy, right? It's part of their marketing. And I think what's really important, if you look at what are the 3 main things to get, you know, the business building, from getting business, from getting patients, from getting people, it's PR, public relations, which is how well known you are in the area, right? What people really say about you. And that's where social media really lives. And then we've got marketing, which is creating want and desire. So really kind of your branding, your positioning, and all these kind of things there. And then the sales, right? So that's really how the front desk handles people and gets them on the books and keeps them coming back. And that's how your therapists are selling them on the plan of care. So that's like the sales actions there. All of that sales becomes so much easier when you have an amazing PR, and then the marketing becomes much easier, and then the sales becomes much easier. So sometimes we work at it so hard on the marketing side, and we're spending a lot of money in advertising and all this kind of other stuff, but we haven't really done enough in our PR area. And that's where putting some effort into your socials can make a big difference in building up your PR, and that makes your marketing much more effective, and it makes your sales much more effective.
100%. And if you aren't taking it seriously, I guarantee you competitors in your market are, and your patients are on social media. Whether you are or not, your patients are, I guarantee it.
Yeah. And we're in this position now. I'm a really big proponent of this. I think 2025 is the year when, as clinics, we're really having to pivot into a hybrid model. So having majority insurance-based patients, but then cash value added services to supplement because we can't rely on reimbursement. And we can't be at the mercy of insurance companies anymore. We've got to forge our own way. And so part of that is being able to stand out in the crowd, and not just from the PT down the street. I'm talking like against, physicians and the gizmo on, late night TV and all kinds of stuff that's choices out there for someone who's having pain or problems. We got to stand out. And if you want to sell more cash services, if you want to attract more premium insurance mixes, then you have to stand out on social, right? That people are going to so judge you by that. But it's a way to really forge your clinic forward for that. And McKenna, I'm curious, as you've worked with different clinic owners, are you working with clinic owners that do have additional cash services that they're doing, and what are they doing there?
Yes, absolutely, they do. A lot of sports programs and a lot of, pelvic health programs, a lot of different fall and balance prevention programs, different things like that, which are all really, really, really important to keep in mind, because a lot of those things you can relate back to a human pain point, or, what someone would experience from that personal level. And it really resonates well on the social landscapes, because you are kind of humanizing it and kind of taking it to a different level. Balance and fall prevention, that's where Facebook really comes into play. We love to target Facebook for that one. But those sports programs, we love Instagram. That's where we're really targeting some of those younger, more proactive weekend warriors that may be training for a race or something like that. That's, where we really tap into that. So no, absolutely. You're so right.
Yeah. Now, what I see there too is, let's say sports performance, right? So from sports performance, I'm thinking cutting edge. Why am I going to pay you versus going to a trainer at a gym, right? And what can you do differently, right? And how are you going to rehab me differently? And I'm and then if I see at your clinic that you have local celebrity athletes or even more professional athletes, wow, that's a place that you can really showcase that kind of stuff on social media.
Yeah.
That gets a lot of people talking, right?
Yeah.
And it's very easy on social to share something.
Yeah.
Like, hey, my son, he's, a high school baseball player. He got hurt. Do you have anybody that you recommend? That's typically what's going to go in a mom chat.
100%.
And someone went to your place. They had an awesome experience. Like, check this place out. They share 100%. Right on social. Like, that's how it works, people.
Yeah.
So you got to be there. You got to be where the people are talking.
Well, and if you get them in for the sports program, if you have dry needling that needs to go on, or a laser therapy that can go on to it, or, anything else that you do that would benefit that athlete or that patient, you have way more opportunity than your local gym does. So you need them rather than your local gym does, 100%.
Yeah. And I would say too, for sports and that, you could start off fairly simple, right? In social, I would say the bigger clinics that are out there that are doing some social consistently, but aren't quite to a high level on it yet. Like, that's an area for you to look at and invest, because if you create more professional videography and photography and posts and the graphic design of those posts, it just captures way more attention, right? So if you haven't done much posting much on social media, and you don't have a lot of personnel to help you, then just get going, right? And start simple. But like, if you're bigger and you have a marketing director and you have multiple providers, multiple locations, like, step up your game, right? And get more photography, get more videography, get some professional help, and take it to that next level.
Yeah.
All right. So you're helping a lot of clinic owners here that are really too busy to post consistently. So what do you say to people who are feeling overwhelmed by trying to tackle social media?
Don't be overwhelmed. I'm here to help. It's okay. Between seeing patients, managing staff, helping the clinic run, billing, insurance, social media can just feel like the bottom of the barrel, which is, pretty easy to do, but don't cut it out. That's where who still want to get involved and feel overwhelmed, start with 1 or 2 posts per week. Keep them simple, keep them focused on what matters in their community, educational tips, things like that. Just keep it simple. Or if you don't want to, reach out to us, of course, and we'll help you manage that. But my biggest advice is, lean into 1-2 posts per week. Keep it that human touch point. Talk about your patients, talk about your staff. Those are 2 simple areas you can just start with right there. And then create a plan that works best for your schedule and supports the needs of the clinic. Are there any programs that really need, the most assistance? And then start there.
Awesome. And so we started a social media done for you service at Practice Promotions just under a year ago. Right. Mm-hmm. And so can you walk us through how that works for practice owners?
Yes. So we brought that into the patient engagement team just as, the next level of marketing for our patients and keeping our followers up. So our social media service is designed to take the stress and guesswork out of all of that for our clinic owners or marketing directors. And really first we start by getting to know your clinic. That is obviously step 1. We want to know your values, your goals, what makes you stand out in that local community of yours. From there, we gather necessary photos, videos, and just different updates from your staff members. So those staff features, any fun things that we do, staff introductions, things of that nature. Once we get the content, we get to work, of course. So we create customized social media posts, and we take care of engaging captions, appropriate hashtags, and optimized scheduling all for you. So the team does all of this to ensure consistency and timing aligns for best practices for your maximum engagement. And as for results, clinic who use our services typically see an increase in online visibility and engagement right within those first few months. And it's a great way to build stronger connections in your local community, as we talked to, and just really grow that presence. So, it gives you more time to focus on your patient care while we really tackle the community building for you.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah. So try not to figure it all out yourself.
Yes.
And helping just make it consistent, right? And getting it out there. And I think one thing that our team does amazing, having the graphic designers really, design up the imagery and the graphics. And so it kind of, I've always seen those before and afters of clinics that were doing it themselves, and they looked okay, right? But
yeah.
Then, boom, we take it to that whole nother level, and your professionalism just goes up, which gets, I think you were telling me before some of the impression increases and things like that have happened. Any particular people come to mind with that?
Oh my goodness. I would say specifically movement specialists, we've seen great growth with them. I think within the first 6 months, we've seen a 6% follower growth. And I can't remember off of the top of my head which one we had seen either reach or visibility. One of them was about 50%, and then the other one was 200%. So we've seen great growth just by really managing their hashtags, and their most popular hashtags are movement specialist family, MSPT family, New Orleans care, because they're a NOLA client, so they've got a big community down there. So of course that hashtag is pretty popular, but really those family-centric and clinic-specific hashtags are doing the most for them, because we're really promoting that family-first feel or that one-on-one approach. Joe, the owner, he's great. He's in a lot of our images. He invested in photography for the clinic, and the images really have taken their social to an entirely next level. And, to your point too about working with us to now, a lot of clinics previously, it's just a lot of flat graphics, but our designers, I have to just, brag on them for quite a second. They're just so dynamic, and they really have visual effects that almost come out of your phone in a second, that just make it a little bit different than what you'd see scrolling on your regular feed. So, I have to just shout out our amazing designers. They really keep all of that into perspective.
Yeah, they sure do. Yeah. And that's a great point that you put up there. You literally have 1 second as someone's scrolling through their feed. So your image just has to pop, right? It has to stand out. And I think our team does a very good job of that, which gets people to stop, right? And then they're like, what's this about, right? And they start to look at it, and they might comment or like it or whatever, right? But as I was saying before, if people are interacting with that and it's consistent, that's also helping everything on Google.
Yeah.
So it's just not only the social platform itself, but how it impacts the whole digital presence when you have that going quickly. And so as people are considering that, what does the onboarding process look like, and how quickly can a clinic start to see value?
Yeah, good question. We really try to keep it as quick and straightforward as possible. We totally understand the time sacrifice that it takes to onboard a new product or a new service. So we start by just having a quick call to, meet the owner or the team that we'll be working with the most to learn the brand values, target audience. If you're already working with us, on newsletters specifically, we're already very much well honed in on all of this. But we just have that initial call just to make sure that all of the content is really tailored to your clinic's unique personality. From there, we get started on any initial content, like things like clinic photos you want to promote, videos, team member introductions, or upcoming promotions, events in your community that were important to you. If you don't have a lot to provide, that's not a problem. Don't worry about it. We can guide you into what to gather, even provide templates or tips to make it easier for you. If you are wanting to branch into that video space and you need some help coming up with some scripts, we can absolutely help you with that. And once we get all of that information squared away, we jump into action. The first posts are typically ready within a week or two, depending on the complexity of the content. And then we move into edits, approval process. But as far as seeing value, like I said, most clinics really start to see an increase in engagement within that first month or so. But over time, the content gets easier to promote, easier to manage, and we really start to understand each other's, working process.
Awesome. That's great. And so as you're seeing a lot here with different clinics, where do you think PT social media is heading in that next year or so?
Another good question. So just really that community-centric content, a lot of big players are in the ball game now. So that's really a big thing, is what makes you different. It's not just about posting services. It's about connecting with the local community, tell those stories, share your highlights and different insights that you have on lifestyle challenges associated with conditions, and provide education on treatment methods, just really tap into what supports people in their everyday lives, not just in the therapy room. That's really important. And, also we're going to see a stronger emphasis on that video content. I've brought that up a little bit, but short educational clips that explain treatment, answer common questions for you, or show, just different behind the scenes glimpses into clinic life. That's really, really important. It makes your clinic feel real and approachable. And that's what we want. PT is not a scary thing. It's an approachable practice. And another valuable is focusing on that hyper local engagement. Use local hashtags. I couldn't tell you how many times I do, a discovery call with a client and they're working with a different company and they're not using hashtags. And I'm like, what's going on? So, make sure that you're looking at your hashtags. It's all about making sure your clinic's content is being seen and your community is your patients. So, really tap into that. And then you really encourage your patients to share their stories too. If you do have a testimonial on there and you see that patient, ask them to share it to their Facebook page. It's okay, to ask for support in some of those things too. People trust real experiences, and showcasing those really help, build your credibility.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fantastic. Love that. And then as you work with different clinic owners here, and someone who's like thinking about it, like, hey, I need to do more with social here, what's one simple thing that they could do, to get going on their social media presence?
This is my favorite game to play. It's my favorite homework to assign, because the first thing that I want them to do is go through their social media profiles as if they were a patient and they never knew what you did or who you were or the value of the service that you provided. If you were a potential patient, would this profile look welcoming, informing, or engaging? Does it clearly showcase what your clinic does, or more importantly, how you help people? If you don't see that, you need to step 2. You need to make sure you're posting at least once a week. It doesn't have to be complex, again, something as super simple as a patient story, team introduction, super simple tip, consistency is more important than perfection. So focus on taking that step forward into regular posting, and just take a fresh look at your profile from a patient's point of view, and then posting. You're building stronger connections and you're trying to show up as that local resource. So do you get that feel from your profile?
Love it. And so, finally, as people want to learn more about this or, our social media service, what's the best way for them to learn about that?
So if you're a new client and you want to learn all about it, go to the Practice Promotions website and you can see a lot of the details there. But if you're existing patient engagement client or existing Practice Promotions client, reach out to me and I will personally help you get in touch with the right person there. It might be me too. So I'm here to help you every step of the way. Just make sure that if we're not helping you with socials yet, there's an area for opportunity for us to help you with your social account. And really take some of that strategy off of your plate.
Fantastic. So McKenna, thank you so much for all your wisdom today and helping us really understand the power of social media and how we can leverage that in our practice. And I would just say for all those practice owners out there, this is the year that you need to level up your game in social media. It's amazing what it can really do for you. And if you are currently doing it, fantastic. And you need some help kind of taking that to the next level, more professional content and imagery, we can definitely help you with that. So for all of our practice owners out there, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast here, the Practice Marketing Podcast. Also check out our YouTube channel with lots of great tips and advice there. Subscribe to our channel. And then don't forget to go to practicepromotions.net. We can learn more about our social media services, as well as tons of free advice and downloads for you there. So McKenna, thanks for being on the podcast with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, and to all our listeners out there, this is Neil Trickett from the Practice Marketing Podcast, wishing you much success in your practice.
A free way for you to support our show is by leaving a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It's a chance for you to tell us what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it as well. Just scroll down to Ratings and Review on your phone and click Write a Review. Thanks.